You're listening to the All Day Ruckoff podcast, episode number 94. Welcome to the All Day Ruckoff podcast, episode number 94. This is your host, Brian, and I wanted to thank you so much for tuning in. The All Day Ruckoff podcast focuses on the GRT and rucking community and includes interviews, motivation, and advice to keep you informed and get you ready for your next event. In this episode, we have an awesome interview with Carmela. Carmela is a fellow GRT. She helps run the DMV Ruck Club, and she runs the Girls Who Ruck Instagram account. This is the last episode for March, which is International Women's Month, and so I figured what better way to round out the month than with having Carmela on. We talk about how she got involved with GORUCK, her first event, which was actually the GORUCK Cadre Reunion. Then we talk about the first GORUCK Women's Only event, how that event evolved, what's happening this year, the Girls Who Ruck Instagram account, and what her goals behind that are. We have some awesome conversations, and I really hope that you enjoy this episode. Before we get into the interview, we got a couple announcements over here. First off, a lot of new gear in the All Day Ruckoff store. As of right now, we're now carrying a Source hydration bladders and mechanics gloves. So if you're in the market for either of those, got them on the site, have multiple sizes of both. And I'm excited about the Source hydration bladders because I really like the 3-liter wide ones. I think those are great for the GR1 and the Rucker. And I think right now they're super expensive on Amazon because no one's got them on there. So excited to have a couple of those available. The second update, which really sucks. I wasn't sure if I was going to mention it on the podcast or not, but I know there's people who listen to this who don't follow All Day Ruckoff on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. Last week, we had to put our pup, Watson, down. He had some incredibly aggressive cancer, and it was just a really sucky situation. Thank you to everyone who's reached out about that. I truly appreciate it. Ever since it happened, I took a break from social media to kind of collect my thoughts and my feelings. And although I haven't responded to every single message that has come in, I have read them all and I truly appreciate them. We adopted Watson when he was 7.5 years old, and he's lived with us for the last 6.5 years of his life. He's been an amazing dog and just a wonderful member of the family. So we're really sad to have to do that last Thursday. Now that I've bummed you out with that horrible news, here is the awesome interview with Carmela.
It was a point in my life where I had just gotten divorced and I was sort of just lost. I was looking for something. I just didn't know what that thing was yet to figure out, just kind of who I was going to be as I was transitioning into this new life of mine. And my brother, Ray, actually found GORUCK first through his best friend. And he called me up one day and said, hey, I did this event. I think you would really like it. And he told me about it, and I thought it sounded scary. And I was like, okay, well, I'm looking for this new stuff to do. So sure, let's do it. I'll do it. And then he was doing his first light in Philadelphia this was back in 2013 in the spring, and I told him I was going to sign up, and then I just didn't. I chickened out, and I was like, nope, not doing it. I will come and I will watch you and I will support you, but I can't do it. So I ended up going out and shadowing his first event and his first light. He had already done a challenge at that point. And I got there, and I will just never forget this. There was this girl there who was so happy. Like, she just had this smile on her face during the entire event, and the event sucked. It looked awful. Everybody was miserable, but she was smiling the whole time. And I remember thinking, she's so happy. I could have done this. I don't know why I didn't do this event. So fast forward, like an hour or two after the event ends, and I was like, hey, Ray, I was an idiot. I need to sign up. Let's do this. So after a false start, my actual first event was on the 4th of July in D.C. It was the all cadre reunion here in DC. So there was a giant light class. There was over 100 of us. There was, I want to say, like 2 or 3 challenge classes going on. We all started at 7 a.m. and it was miserable. Like it was absolutely miserable event. But it was one of those things where as I was doing it, I realized how terrible it was, and I just kept thinking, all these people are here to support me. I had my brother with me. I had, a couple other friends with me who had come down from Philly to do this with me, and it was terrible. I cannot. There's no other word for how terrible it really was. And 7.5 hours later, it ends, and I was crying because I couldn't believe I had done this thing. And I finished the event, and I was like, yeah, I'm never doing this again. I'm good. Never. I'm good. No more. Which I think are like very famous GRT words at this point, because clearly that I have done other events since then. So,
It's funny how that works.
Yeah, it really is. I was going to be finished. I was never going to do an event again. And a couple months later, I was like, well, maybe I'll just try a challenge. I'll just do one of those. I'll just try a challenge, and then I'll be done. Then I won't do any of those again. And then I went and did a challenge. And again, that was not the last one. So clearly there was something there that kept pulling me back, I guess.
And what a first event to do, the all cadre reunion. I mean, that must have been, looking back now that you've done more GORUCK events and you're way, way more involved in the community. I mean, what a first event for someone to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Like now that I look back at it was really special. I showed up at this event with all these cadre that everybody knew, and I didn't know any of them. Like I didn't know who any of these people were, and there were so many really great inside jokes happening. Like people were just, yelling back and forth, and they're all excited to see each other. And also all realize that this is going to be a really long day, and it's going to be really awful. But it was just, you could just tell right away what a great community it was, and how people were just really excited to be there and excited to see people that they hadn't seen in a really long time. So that part was really cool to me, to get to see that and witness it and be part of. Because a lot of those people aren't with the company anymore either, which is also, cool that I sort of feel like I got in early enough to sort of make an acquaintance with a lot of these people and to see what it was like. And then I've been able to stay with it as it's continued to evolve, which has been really fun for me.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to watch cadre come and go. And I too feel very lucky to have, done some events with some cadre that are no longer here. And also, it's exciting to still be in the community because we get to do events with all these brand new cadre who are coming in and definitely making a name for themselves.
Yeah, it's been really fun to see what each one of them has brought to the community. Because my very first cadre was Matt Stoltz. He was our light cadre that day, and I had him that time, and then I didn't have him again until just recently. This past Cinco de Mayo, this past year, he did our Cinco de Mayo triple light here in DC. And one of the first things I said to him was like, hey, I haven't seen you since this first event. And he goes, and you came back. I said, I did. I stayed around. You did. I guess you didn't scare me off. He was like, not everybody comes back after they have me. And I thought it was really funny just because, just to hear him, because he had also sort of been out away for a little bit too. So it's fun to get to reconnect with them. But he also remembered my event. Like he remembered that July 4th event. He remembered the class. He remembered some of the stories and things that had happened, which was awesome. It was really great to get to reconnect with him in that way too. So,
yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. I mean, just when cadre are coming back to town, you haven't seen them in a while. It's really nice to reconnect with them, and that's kind of something that makes, I think, GORUCK events special, because not every race series is like that. So you almost did your first event, and then you came back, you ended up doing your first event. Something about the event must have resonated with you because you've done a bunch of events since. Do you know how many events you've done so far?
So I was looking at this the other day in preparation for this conversation. So I've done just over 40 at this point.
That's a lot of events.
It is a lot of events. There was I remember a couple this time last year I did another event, and one of the cadre had asked us, like, why, what's your why? Why do you keep coming back to GORUCK? And I was there with a couple friends, and people say a lot of things, and I when it got to me, like I realized I continually come back to GORUCK for two things. The first is it's very personal. It's for me. Like, it's the GORUCK is this thing that has helped me get out of my own head. It is, like, people always talk about exercise being this free form of therapy, which I do agree with. But being in a GORUCK event has been something that has forced me to step again back outside of myself. And I can't be in my own head. I can't worry only about me. I have to worry about other people. And that brings me to my second thing that brings me back to GORUCK, and that's the people. I have met so many amazing people doing this, that when someone calls you up and is like, hey, what are you doing on Friday? And if you don't have a good answer, and their response is, there's a challenge in DC, do you want to go? The answer tends to be yes, more often than no. So I think that's what, that's the piece that kind of keeps bringing me back, are these people. I get those great endorphin highs, and it's really good for me mentally and physically. And then I have these really great relationships with people that I want to spend time with them. I want to be around them. So I just keep showing up for them. And, 40 events later, that's kind of still the big pull that keeps bringing me back over and over again.
I can't think of any other event series or race series that I consistently come back to because of the people. So we do have an amazing community here, and it's the same. I'm the same way, where if someone says, we're getting a group together, what are you doing this Friday night? If I have nothing going on, then it's definitely be going out to a GORUCK event.
Yeah. It is really special, and I don't know how else. It's hard to describe it to other people. Like, I know you get it because you do it, but it is hard to describe it to other people until you're in it, because there isn't another. I've done a bunch of OCRs, and they're fun, but again, even all the OCRs that I do, I'm doing them with the people that I met through GORUCK. Like, that's who I do those with. And it's like, hey, let's go try this other thing. All right, are we bringing our rocks? Yeah, of course we're bringing our rocks. Okay. And that's just sort of how that all goes.
Yeah. And anytime I do those races without people who I've met through GORUCK, it's always pretty lonely. And you definitely notice at those points the difference between those races and a GORUCK event, where, at GORUCK, you're doing the event with your team, with the people who showed up. And at a Spartan race or another OCR, you're pretty much doing the event just alongside a lot of other people who are doing the same event.
Right. Yeah.
We talked a little bit before this. You went to the first all-women's GORUCK event that they had. What was the time span between your first event and when you registered for and went to that all-women's event?
My first light was in the summer of 2013. And the 4th of July light, and there was a girl that I met there that I became friends with. There was a couple of us, and when the all women's event was first brought up, it was like in November of 2000. It was the following year, so it was November of the following year, so 2014. And I remember, like, at some point that summer we had become friendly, and she was like, "Hey, let's get a group of girls together and do this event." And I was like, okay, sounds great. And she was like, all right, it's going to be a challenge, it's going to be a light, and there's a scavenger hunt. So we were like, okay. And it was billed as like this girls' weekend. Like, get your girls together and, come down and do this GORUCK event. It's going to be in Miami. So it was about a year later, and I didn't really do any events in between there that I can remember. Which I'm assuming means I just didn't, until that following year, until I went and did the all women's in Miami. And the original girl who put it together ended up not going. And we ended up, there was, I think, 5 or 6 of us that went together. We got an Airbnb or like a hotel room and stayed there together. And it was amazing. I remember setting up to go and talking about how nervous I was. Because all the women in the community, there were so many women in the community that were so excited about going and doing this. And there were all these cadre were coming down, like people that I was really excited about, like Big Daddy and Bert, who I hadn't met yet, but I had heard of their reputations, and I really wanted to do an event with them, and they were going to be there. And this is actually where I met like Steph and a bunch of other really great women GRTs from around the country, and everybody descended into Miami, and it was as amazing as I thought it was going to be and more. It was so cool to be in an area with, and I want to say there was over 100 of us, I believe. There was like 100 and I want to say 156. And the only reason why I know that is because we had 3 teams for the challenge. And I was on Team Charlie, so I was on C, and we had 56 people, and the other 2 teams, I believe, had 50 each. And I got to be on a team with Bert and Bert, Big Daddy, and Surf Hog. They were our cadre for our team, and my teammates were amazing. I was on a team with Mama Stump, which is where I met her, as well as just like so many other really great women in the community, and it was such a good time. It was hard. It wasn't easy. My team, we felt like we didn't go anywhere. We carried a lot of really heavy stuff and felt like we didn't go anywhere. And we're in the middle of South Beach, like all these people are dressed up and going to bars, and we look like, we just got dragged out of the ocean. We're covered in sand and carrying heavy stuff. But it was one of the most amazing experiences I think I've ever had.
And that is such a huge class. It sounds like a lot of people traveled in from out of town for it too.
Oh, they did. I mean, we had people from San Francisco were there, and Texas, and, people in the Midwest, clearly people from Florida. There's people coming down from New York and Connecticut. So, and all my area in D.C. and Maryland. So there's people from all over the country. And then we just kind of all converged in the same place, and we had this one thing in our heads, right? Like, I think it was like right after, because Jason had made that big thing about, women in GORUCK, like how strong women in GORUCK are, and how women don't quit events. And that was like a big, huge point of pride for us. We're like, there's all these people coming down here. No one's going to quit. I think we did actually have 2 quit from one of the other teams, but, out of 156 people, that's not so bad, right? And then the next day there was a light. So, people came out again and showed up for the light. And then, there was a scavenger, and everybody came and showed up again for the scavenger hunt. So it was really incredible. And it was really great. So, when you're typically at a GORUCK event, right, like you look around, and you're always looking for somebody stronger than you and somebody weaker than you. At least I think most people are, right? Like, who can I help and who's going to help me? And this was one of those events where, like, you're also doing that, and you sort of started to realize, like, I'm that person for somebody else. And I think sometimes for women in a GORUCK event, you don't always tend to think like you're that strong person for somebody, but we are. And this was one of those events where it's like you couldn't just rely on the big dude, right? Like, I think we all look for where's the big dude? Like, I don't want to carry the big dude, but I know that big dude's going to carry the log. There wasn't that person. So you're constantly sort of looking and how can we help each other do this? There was a lot of the teamwork that I saw there was pretty amazing, and it happened really quickly. Nobody wanted to be the one who wasn't doing something. So everybody was constantly trying to figure out, how can I help? What can I do in this situation? And it was just really nice. It was just really nice to see, just to see women working together in that way, which we don't always get to see at GORUCK events because sometimes we're very outnumbered. by men, like on a regular basis, which is fine too. Like that's not a bad thing either. But it was fun to be in a situation where it was just all of us, and we still had to move all the heavy stuff. We still had to carry the heavy logs, and we still had to move the sandbags, and then what that was going to look like. So that was pretty. I thought that was pretty great.
And that just sounds like a phenomenal event. And I mean, I think you're right. I can't remember the last time I was at a GORUCK event where females outnumbered males. So that must have been, I mean, just really fun having you and all your friends down there for it. And then on top of that, it sounds like a lot of people traveled in, and there's something so special about when the majority of people travel in for an event like this, because when you're at a typical GORUCK event and the event ends, then you go and you grab some food or something, and then everyone kind of goes home afterwards. But when everyone's traveling in, there isn't like a home for everyone to go to. So I would imagine that you end up spending a lot more time and hanging out a bit more together.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're right, and that's why I think so many of us thought of it as this idea of this girls' weekend, because we had to travel in, so we were there. There was a lot of teamwork in the beginning. Before the event even started, we had our own little like team page as we were trying to figure out, where are people staying? How are you getting your bricks there? Because most of us were using bricks, not plates at that point. So like, how are you getting your weight? What's our team weight going to be? Where are the best places to do X, Y, and Z? And we had people in the area who really definitely helped out, to make sure that we had our team weights, to hook people up with, here's where to go to eat and all that kind of stuff. So it was really great. We had started to build that camaraderie beforehand, and it continued through the event and then continued afterwards. I actually just like looked at the page the other day. I was looking at the page for, to start looking, kind of thinking about this next one that's going to be coming up in September. And when I was looking back and just kind of reliving some of the memories and looking at the pictures and some of the conversations, we were still in that group talking like a year or two later, remembering the event and talking about some of the different stories and things from the event. So it was really great to just kind of look back and remember that and know that that's still is such a big deal. Those two patches, the patches from that weekend, are some of my most favorite patches ever.
It sure sounds like it. I mean, you can just tell in the excitement in your voice and just the way you're recalling that weekend. It seems like it was truly special.
Yeah, it really was. So, yeah, it was pretty great. I mean, that was the event that I got to meet Mama Stump, and she was on our team, and she was an incredible woman and really kind, and it was so inspiring to watch her, as she was going through, her illness and the things that she was going through. She went through a lot to be there at that event. And then to be on a team with her and then see everybody just sort of rally around her, because it was a big deal to all of us that, she was there and she was going to finish. And if she was there and she was going to finish, we were going to make sure that we were all there for her. And then also we were going to finish too. Like this was it definitely became a team really quickly. And I that's another big reason why I think it was an event that just kind of continues to stay with me.
Yeah. Yeah, I never met her in person, but I was down at HQ a couple of years ago and they were talking about the one of the upcoming all-female events. I think they actually had that one named after her. I think it was the Mama Stump All Females event. And I think they've since renamed it to Badass Babes for this year, but I just remember hearing stories about her and she just sounded like just such an amazing person.
Yeah, I think she was really incredible. I mean, and I got to meet her then, and we talked back and forth a little while after the event. But yeah, she was incredible, and they did rename the women's event, so it is going to be the Badass Babes event now. But there is, as far as I know, there's still going to be a Mama Stump event, but I believe they're going to open it up so that the men can do it too. So it won't just be all women, because Mama Stump was really loved by a lot of people in the community. So I think that was an important thing for them to look into doing.
I would love that because, like you said, there's a lot more people than just women who loved her. So that would be that would be nice. So after that first all women's event, I mean, it sounded like you all came together. It was this huge community, and then you had this Facebook group that you talked to each other for years after that event. Did you notice a difference in the female GRT community before and after that event?
I think I one of the things that I think I noticed is that, and I wasn't super. I don't think I was as involved in the community until after this event, as much. Like I was part of it, but like I didn't join the tough page until after I finished my first challenge. So, I wasn't as involved until after this one. And what it did for me, and I'd like to think it did this for, I know it did it for some of the people I know, but I'd like to think it did it for more, is I think it gave me the idea of, it gave me another community within this community. So it was this idea of there are other people like me, which is, what we're looking for, right? We're always looking for people who are like us. So there's other people like me who like to do these same things I do and may have similar challenges that I have, or might have, some suggestions or advice that could help me as I continue to grow within this community. I think there is a difference being a woman in this community than a man, and it's not a bad difference. It's just different. But it was important to me, and I thought it was really great that GORUCK had started to acknowledge that through the all women's event, and that they continued to and that they are continuing to make it a focus for them, the women in the community, because we are a little bit different. Like, girls are a little bit different than boys, in some ways. So I think it's important to sort of recognize that and celebrate it as we go. So I like to think that the all women's event sort of opened up that platform, and that they're just kind of continuing to spread that as we go. And I think Emily is, doing a really great job of opening that up as well. So I'm excited to see where we're going.
Yeah, it was really fun to talk to Emily about that. I had no clue at all. She kind of caught me off guard on that call when she told me that her current position, she was leaving it and she was going to be focusing solely on women in the GORUCK community and women in rucking. And I think that's really cool.
I think so too. I think I think this is just like overall, like, I'm a teacher, so I'm in a very woman dominated field. And when I talk about what I do on the weekends with my coworkers and my friends at work, the first couple of times that I brought up, they're always shocked. They're amazed because I can't believe you do that. Like that stuff is so crazy. And what do you mean you walk around with a backpack on your back with 30 pounds in it, and then you're doing this and that, and they are so incredible. And it's mostly because none of them think that they can do those things. And part of my big push, I think, over the past couple of years, and I think which is just where I'm assuming Emily is going too, is that like you can do those things. And when I talk about it with the women that I work with, especially, I normally fire back with, yeah, well, you have a toddler that you carry for hours. Like, you will carry that kid for hours. Your kid weighs like 20 to 30 pounds, and you've got him on your back, and you're carrying him on your front. You're basically rucking. You just don't have, like, it's just, your weight is alive and not in a backpack. So, like, you can do this stuff too. It's just going out and doing it. And that was one of the things that I think, in the end of the day, that I still really love about GORUCK, is that it's something that everybody can do, and it's something that women are scared of, but can also do it. And once it gets open to them, and there are people that are encouraging them and telling them, hey, you can do this too, and they start trying it. And when they try it, they end up liking it. I'm not sure how many of my coworkers are going to run and go do like a challenge anytime soon. But I've gotten a couple of them to go do the Santa Ruck. And I've gotten a couple of them to just come out and do some fun rucks with their kids or just on their own. And they end up really liking it. So GORUCK, I think, is really empowering. And I think the more that we can empower women, the better.
And I would almost make the point that carrying a 25 to 30 pound child is much more difficult than carrying a 25 to 30 pound sandbag or ruck.
I mean, I agree.
Half the time they're fighting you back, trying to get, put on the ground, and it's almost like having a team weight that's working against you.
That's very fair.
I'm very impressed with my wife whenever I'll see her like holding our daughter who was in the 99.99 percentile. Like her number was red in terms of weight. She was a heavy little girl, and she would hold her for like half an hour to an hour. Then I would hold her for 15, 20 minutes. My arms would start getting numb. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can do hard things.
It's just kind of associating that with, training for a GORUCK event, because you go to the GORUCK website and you see all the crazy stuff they're doing. And they're like, I don't do any of that in my everyday life. Like none of that. There's no way I can do this. It's not until you start connecting the dots. You're like, oh, well, I do carry my kid around for like 2 hours and they are pulling my hair and trying to, fight me down. And sometimes I have to carry both of them. And, we're trying to get out to the car and you've got a backpack on and a kid under one arm and a diaper bag under the other arm. You're trying to balance like the water bottle on your shoulder. And it's like, you know what? That's almost like carrying a log in a team weight.
And you know what? And if it's not exactly like it, at least you have some experience doing it. So, you have a little bit of experience being uncomfortable. You've got some experience like carrying odd shaped heavy things for weird amounts of time. So this is just like another step, something else that's different. And it's just, I find like just the idea of rucking just very accessible for people. And again, I don't know, maybe it's the military piece of it. I think that sometimes intimidates some of the women that I talk to about it. I don't know if it's that. I know for sure the PT is part of it, right? Like the push-ups and stuff like that. But once they sort of realize like there's some of this I can do, then they're more willing to try the other parts of it. And I personally feel like I have gained so much confidence and, physical strength for sure, but I also know that I've gained mental strength and emotional strength and just a lot of confidence in myself just from doing these events. And it's the kind of stuff that I feel like all women can really benefit from. It's the same thing as being an athlete. Like, I played team sports my entire life. I was a basketball player all through college. And I just, being part of a team and doing that with other women, it's that kind of experience that I want everybody to be able to experience at some point. It's life changing.
So speaking of getting other people to experience this as well, I've recently talked to Steph and she was telling me about an all girls ruck club where, it's more of a open community where people can come in, they can ask questions, from what I gather, obviously I'm not a female, so I'm not invited. So, which is the way it should be. So I'm just guessing on the outside from what her and I talked about, but it seems like that's being used as a great way to get people more involved and get to do events. So what are your thoughts on that?
So Steph and I have known each other since that first all women's event. That's where we met. And we've stayed in contact since then. And she asked me to work with her it's the Muscle Mafia Rucking Club. And so it is a virtual rucking club because we recognize that there's not always enough women in areas to start the physical all women's rucking club. But here at least is an opportunity for us to have a ruck club that is all women. So I love it. I think it's really great. Being part of a ruck club is really fun. I also help run the one in my area, the DMV GRTs. And running that one, which is physically happening here in my area versus working on Muscle Mafia, is a little bit different, right? So the Muscle Mafia one has been really great because there's this community of women. We get to talk and we get to share ideas about the different events that are coming up, and we'll be talking a lot about the next all women's event that's coming up in September. We'll be talking about that within the Ruck Club and trying to get people to come out for that. But it is challenging as well because we can't physically be there for each other. So we rely a lot on like take a photo and post it here, or comment here or fill in a poll like where are you going to be this month, what events are you going to do, and just try to help women connect with each other in their own local communities too. So you may not have known that there were these other women that are rucking in your area, but hopefully at least through the Muscle Mafia you can find other people that maybe are part of different ruck clubs that you can work out with and meet up with as well. So that's been a really good experience for me, and I love getting to work with Steph because she's pretty awesome.
Yeah, when I just spoke with Steph, that was the first time I've ever actually talked to her, and I've yet to meet her in person, but she was great to chat with and just has such an awesome personality and seems like such a genuinely just nice individual.
Yeah, she's really great, and she's very supportive. And over the past year or two, we've been working on some things together through like Instagram, and then through also through Facebook, and collaborating on things. And we have a very similar mindset and just a very similar philosophy about women in rucking. And that this really is for everybody, and we want to celebrate every woman that goes out and does this. This isn't it's not always a pretty event. It's not something where, it's not easy, and it's not something that you always look really great doing. But man, you feel like a badass when you finish an event. And, it's to be able to have other people who get that and want to celebrate that with you, I think is really awesome. So Steph and I both try to, celebrate people as much as we can, especially the women within our community. And it's been fun to work with her on that kind of stuff.
And it seems like you're doing just a ton of work in this space. So how long have you been involved in Muscle Mafia?
Almost since the beginning of it. So I have an Instagram account that I use that I work on called Girls That Ruck. And it started out just as, like I said, we're just trying to celebrate women in rucking, and I've been posting and reposting pictures on there. And last year, right around the International Women's Day, I remember Jason and Blaine doing a International Women's Day video talking about women in the GORUCK community. And I happened to be talking to Steph, and I guess we had been messengering back and forth. And I was like, hey, I think we could do a better job at celebrating women in rucking. And she was like, oh, I do too. So the two of us laughed about it for a little bit, and then decided we wanted to start celebrating women in rucking. So we started this little campaign that we did with, we called it, Badass Women, and we interviewed a bunch of different women, GRTs, throughout the country. Reached out to a couple of our friends and asked them for suggestions of people who would be willing to talk to us, and sent that. We each did one and sent everybody interview questions, asked them for pictures, and we just sort of told their stories and just shared their pictures on Instagram with some quotes, and then linked it to the Steph's Infinite Life Fitness blog. So there's a blog post about them, and then you could see them on Instagram, and everything just kind of snowballed from there, where we both just saw hey, this is what we want to do, and we just kind of kept doing it. So I guess, I've been working with her ever since then. We just sort of collaborated through Instagram and through this idea of honestly wanting to be a little bit better than Jason and Blaine. And it just sort of started from there.
So I love Jason and Blaine to death. But when they went on and they were doing their women in rucking episode, I nearly died. I thought that was the funniest thing. I was like, shouldn't Emily be on here?
Yes,
And
So yes, so that's a fun story because we thought the same thing. And I messaged Emily and I was like, Emily, why aren't you doing that? And she was like, I know. She's like, we're on it. And then like a day or two later is when her and Bianca came on and we're talking. And I was like, that was so much better. It had to be from. It was so much better. I applaud them for wanting to do something. It means a lot. But yeah, it was great to see Emily and Bianca sort of come on and be like, okay, we're gonna come and we're gonna really do this now.
yeah, that was, I mean, like you said, good on them for being on there and talking about it, but it was just so funny looking at it from the outside. But that's just such a straightforward solution to the problem, I guess. Like, oh, we need to bring up women in rucking. Well, we should talk about that then. Not looking around the room and be like, do we have any women here? Oh, a lot of them? Okay.
Yeah, because there's a lot of women down there at HQ. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think 30% or something, 35% of their staff is women. I mean, when you go down the staff page, there's a lot of women who work at GORUCK. It's not like they would have had to gone far to find someone.
Oh yeah, exactly.
But like you said, I loved the episode after with Emily and Bianca. I thought Jason and Plains was good, but the one with Emily and Bianca was awesome. And I'm really, really glad that they did that.
I am too. I thought, and again, Jason Blade they were good. It was a good effort. And the Emily and Bianca coming on afterwards, and then the combination of both of them, I think is actually pretty priceless. So it worked out really well, I think, in the end.
Yeah, I think so too. I wish I had a female counterpart here who could help out on, some of these women in rucking interviews, but unfortunately, everyone's stuck with me. So I try and defer these questions as much as possible to the guest.
No, I think you're doing great. Like I as much like I love women in rucking, and I will say this too. Like I've made a lot of amazing female friendships doing GORUCK, but I've also made a lot of really amazing relationships with men too. I think GORUCK has been really great about bringing people together. Again, because we both know what it's like to be in this. We both know what it's like to be up for 12, 13, 15 hours, and you're cold and you're wet and you're hungry and you're exhausted. So like we've all been there and we've done it together. Even if we haven't physically done an event together, we both have been in those situations, and they make for really great relationships. So, and that's not a boy thing or a girl thing. That's a GORUCK thing, which makes for really good relationships. So, women in rucking, I'm very passionate about it because I feel like I was saying earlier, I just feel like there are a lot of women who just don't think that they can do this kind of thing, that don't think that this is for them. And I think, having really great men in the community who are like, hell yeah, this is for you too. Like, come on, get under the flag. Here, come try that. That's really important. So I appreciate it. I just appreciate you wanting to have this conversation at all. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And I've got the Girls Who Ruck Instagram page up right now, and I have to say congratulations on you hit over 1,000 followers now, and that is really, really cool.
Oh.
Yeah, congratulations if you haven't seen that yet. Surprise.
Well, thank you. I try, that page to me is like, that page is not about me. Like, I really want that page to be about all the women in our community. So I do as much as I can to, like, if you tag Girls That Ruck or Girls Who Ruck, or you hashtag it and I see it, I try my best to, like, repost as many people as I can. I love stories. I love really interesting photos of people doing those hard things. So, the more people that want to share them with us, the better. So that page to me is all about all the women in GORUCK. So thanks for checking it out and following it, because I know you follow us over there now. So
of course. And it's such an awesome resource, right? Because the pictures in themselves, like, you can just scroll through. You don't even have to read the messages. The pictures tell the story.
No.
And if someone says, like you said, your friends at work, if I'm talking to a colleague who's, a female, or I'm talking to a friend and they're like, well, I don't think that I can do this. And it's like, why? And like, well, because they say, say anything related to gender, you can just toss this page at them and be like, well, here's like 422 pictures of girls who are doing it, and each one has a lot of girls in them. And it's like, you're strong,
Yeah.
it took me a long time to
Yeah.
convince my wife that she was strong enough to sign up and fit enough to sign up for her first GORUCK and only GORUCK event. And that was back that I think her light class was 057 or something. And so it was one of those 8-hour lights, and she killed it. But
Yep.
the her confidence level was low going in. And she definitely uh, gained a lot of confidence during the event. It's like, oh, I absolutely can do this. I'm awesome. It's like, yes, you are awesome, and you
Yeah.
absolutely can do this. But it's just nice to have these, like a resource like this. So if this had been around in 2013, I could have showed her. It's like, look, you are awesome. You can do this, and it's just just one more push in the direction to do an event.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad to hear you say that, because in 2013, that's the journey I was on too. Like I I didn't know that I could do the things that I could do, and every event since then, I've discovered I could do more things than I could the event before. And sometimes it takes like I I always remember I did an event in Philly, 1776, and I had thought to myself like I can't carry the log. I try to carry the log every time I get under it. Like I can't carry it for a long time. Like I can't do this. This is something I can't do. So I would carry other stuff and do other things, but I would actively stay away from the log. I wouldn't go near it. And I was doing 1776. I was in Philadelphia. That was the event. And Cadre Cleve was the cadre. And we had this giant log. And I remember Joe Miller, Duck, he came back and he was like, I need someone who's like 5'10" or 5'11". Like I need one more person for this log. And I looked at him and I was terrified because I couldn't do it, but I really liked Duck. And I was like, hey, that's me. I'm that height. I can't, I'll try it, but I can't guarantee I can do it for long. And he goes, you only have to do it for a couple seconds. Like, just come do it for a couple seconds. And I was like, okay. And it was me and him and some other guy, and I don't remember his name, but the three of us became a log team. And we would get on the log, and we would be on it for, I don't know, like 1 or 2 minutes. It was not long. It really wasn't long at all. And then another team would come in after me. But that's how I started gaining my confidence about, oh, I can do this. And it took one person. It just took one person saying, you only have to be able to do it for a little bit. You only have to be here for a couple seconds. And then I was like, okay, I can do anything for a couple seconds, right? And then that turned into, I can do anything for a minute. I can do anything for 2 minutes. And it was just kind of continually building that confidence up, which is such a, seems like such a small thing. But if he hadn't have come to get me and like looked me in the face and been like, you only have to do it for a couple minutes, I don't know how long it would have taken me to get under that log. And now I'm like, yeah, let me get under the log. Sure. Let me go carry that 500-pound sandbag. Okay. Now I'll go and try anything because I know I can do it for that little bit of time. But I needed somebody to help me build that confidence. And GORUCK helped me do that, and Joe helped me do that. So thank you, Joe. I don't know if you're going to listen to this, but thank you for that. I've told him that story a couple times at this point. But, I think we all need that. Women need that. Men need that. And I think that's just important.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I've personally have had moments like that at GORUCK events, especially when I first started out. I remember 10 minutes into my first event, I was thinking in my head, I do not know if I can take 8 hours of this. I had no clue that it was going to be like 13 hours of it, but I was thinking eight, eight at the, yeah, surprise, right? Joke's on me. So, I mean, I think everyone has similar moments like that at events, and then you come out of them and it just changes the way you think about other things in your life. If it's whether it's something at work or something, something in your social life or whatever, you just have a different perspective on it because you thought you had this barrier,
Yeah.
and you realize that barrier doesn't exist. It was just kind of a mental barrier, and then you start looking at other barriers in your life and saying, Is this, is this an actual barrier, or is this just like a mental block? Like your example, you can't carry a log, except a weight you can, and you're amazing at it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's something that for some reason, and I don't know if it's just how we're brought up, like, I mean, as women, and I do think it's gotten so much better, like, my dad always told me that I could do anything. Like, I played sports my entire life. Like, so, but as like just in general, I think women are always looked at as smaller and weaker and, and it's not from everybody, but it's just like the general stereotype, right? And this really does give you the opportunity to see that I am strong too. I might be strong in a different way, but I'm still strong. And I can do this, and maybe not as long as somebody else can, but I can still do this. And I just think I think GORUCK has been really empowering for me. And I think it's been really empowering for a lot of the other women in my life that I've met through the community. And I like to celebrate that, and I want to see that keep going.
So speaking of it, keep going. We've got the Girls Who Ruck Instagram page. We've got the Muscle Mafia Facebook group, just all these awesome resources for women in the community. And then we have this upcoming all-female Badass Babes event in the end of September. Will you be at that event?
I will be at that event. I actually just moved some things around to be there. I'm very excited about it. So it's September 27th and 28th down in Louisville, Kentucky. And it's sort of being billed the same way that the first Miami event was. Really looking at it as, here's the opportunity to get the women in our community all together in one place. I feel like putting it in Kentucky was a really great spot because it's a little bit more centralized for people to get to. So I'm hoping that we'll get a pretty big turnout for this one too.
I hope so too. And if there's someone who's listening and they're really interested in this event, obviously they can go to the event webpage and they can, read about it. But I'm guessing it's mostly the typical GORUCK copyright there. Is there another spot that they can go to and kind of get tied into what to expect at this event, or any way to get more information from, women who have done these events in the past?
Yeah, definitely. So if you are interested in learning more about, just being a woman in the GORUCK community, as well as doing this Badass Babe event, there is a Badass Babes page, Instagram group for the women in the GORUCK community, and it's pretty easy to find. The profile picture is all of the women that were at the last GRT reunion last year from Austin. I think it was in Austin last year, or wherever it was last year. So you'll see that picture, and everybody's always talking in there on a pretty regular basis. You can also just tag me or something on the Tough page, or find me on Facebook, or message the girls who rock. You can message us too, and we can answer any questions that you might have about it. But if you ask on the Tough page, somebody will respond. And then probably take that question to a more private message, because the Tough page is kind of hard to talk on. So there's that.
Yeah, the Tough page has its own special something to it.
It does.
Thank you so much for offering the Girls Who Ruck account, and offering, if someone tags you on the Tough page to help answer some of those questions. That's really helpful, and I'm sure that there's people who will appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
What were you going to say about the Badass Babes group?
That is definitely a really great resource for any woman who's in the GORUCK community who just wants to have a space where they can talk to, the other women in the GORUCK community. That's a really great place to go. And there has been a lot of conversation on there so far about the all women's event in September. We've been talking about that on there already.
Perfect. If you wouldn't mind sending me a link sometime. I mean, I don't have these links handy because I'm not a Badass Babe, but yeah. I would love to put it in the show notes so that Badass Babes could find it.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So we've covered how you found GORUCK, your first event, the first all-women's event. We've covered Muscle Mafia, the Girls Who Ruck Instagram account, the Badass Babes all-women event coming up in September. Is there anything else related to, women in rucking or anything else at all that you want to talk about?
The only other thing, I feel like we've literally covered all the bases of my little GORUCK journey, I guess. But I think the only other thing I'd like to say is that I feel very, very fortunate. Again, like I said, what continually brings me back to GORUCK are the people, and I feel very fortunate to have really good friends that I've met through this community that just kind of keep bringing me back over and over and over again. So just I'm really grateful to the community for that, as well as all the other things that I shared about it earlier.
And I have to say that the community is definitely one of the pieces that I love the most about everything GORUCK. And so I have to say, thank you for being just a positive and awesome force in the GORUCK community. I appreciate it. It's definitely people like you that, help make this special. So thanks.
Well, thanks, Brian. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for listening to the All Day Ruckoff podcast. This has been episode 94. I truly appreciate your support, for taking the time to listen. If you're curious about anything we talked about during the episode, you can check out the show notes, alldayruckoff.com/podcast/episode-094. It was great having Carmela on. I'm sure she'll be on again. When I was emailing her before the episode, we talked about 2 or 3 different topics we could cover. We went for one of them, and so we've got a couple more episodes at least of content that I'm sure we'll be able to put together sometime. Just a reminder, updated a lot of stuff in the All Day Ruckoff online store. That's at alldayruckoff.com/store. So if you're looking for more rucking gear, you can check that out. If you have a couple minutes and want to leave a review, those are truly appreciated. You can either search for All Day Ruckoff on iTunes or on Facebook. Should show right up, and they're awesome to receive. Thank you to everyone who's already left a review, and thank you to everyone who does in the future. If you ever want to reach out, you can always send an email directly to me, Brian, spelled BRIAN, at alldayruckoff.com, and I'll definitely get back to you. Thank you so much again for all the support, and I'll talk to you next week, where we've got an awesome couple on that did Pathfinder ruck training together. As always, don't forget, attitude is everything. Keep yours positive, and drink hard, ruck harder.